They don't scream when they kill anymore. They howl, in reverence. I thought I could live with what I did, but some things don't die. They multiply. The ash falls differently now. It used to drift like snow, silent, hollow. Now it carries sound, howls, whispers, names I haven't spoken in years. My name, they speak it like prayer. I've walked 37 burned villages, every ruin the same, charred bones arranged in concentric circles, markings scorched into stone, blood mixed with fur, and always, one creature left behind, still warm, its fur seared with the same sigil I once carved in youth, thinking it would bring peace. That sigil is mine. It was meant to bind the blood, not unleash it. But the echo hounds don't kill out of rage. They serve, they hunt in formation. They arrange the dead like offerings. They hunt in my name. Once, I was Ale of the Third Pact, shaman of the Hollow Path, bearer of the Moonbrand. That was before the last blood moon cracked the skies like glass, before the pact twisted, before I became the god they remember, and the curse I never meant to leave behind. The sky is red now, always. The moon, shattered into 7 broken pieces, casts light like a wound. No stars, no birds, only ash and silence, broken by howls. I've been walking the scarred plains of the Southwaste, following rumors. Survivors speak in hushed tones of the beasts. Echo hounds, they call them. Not werewolves, not skinwalkers. Something worse, something that remembers too much. They are not born, they are called. They have eyes that glow not with rage, but with recognition. And worse still, some have begun to speak not in words, in my voice. This is the tale of a transformation. The werewolf story they tried to bury, the skinwalker myth they were right to fear. The cursed bloodline horror that won't die, because it doesn't want to. It only wants to return, to serve, to hunt. If you're still listening, leave a mark. The next village they pass through will be chosen by scent. Maybe it's yours. Write the sigil down, burn it, or pray they never find your name among the ashes. The first village that made me stop was called Varnholt, what remained of it anyway. The buildings had no roofs, no doors, only scorched timber bones jutting into the red sky like fingers grasping for salvation. Everything smelled of old smoke and dried marrow. But it was the silence that felt off, not the natural quiet of death, but something that held its breath, waiting. The center of the village square had been cleared. Ash swept deliberately into a spiral. At its center lay a corpse, still warm, eyes wide open. Its chest torn open in a perfect vertical slit, ribs exposed, like peeled fruit. It wasn't human, nor fully beast. Its fur was silver black, and glowing faintly along the spine was a sigil etched in burn marks mine. I didn't remember marking this creature, but the curves, the angles, the double crescent and slash beneath. Yes, I made that. A ritual mark meant to be used in war. Symbol to bind wolf and man into singular purpose. Not this, not this. That night I found a broken journal tucked into the corner of a burned-out bakery. Its pages were smeared with soot and something worse. But I read what I could. The howling comes every third night. It's not rage, it's a roll call. We burned the names. They came anyway. We saw the fire moon again. A child started, reciting words he'd never learned. Then he screamed and carved something into his own chest. The mark was a name, A.L. I dropped the journal. My ears were ringing. A wind had picked up, and with it came a sound I hadn't heard in months. Low rumbling growl, and then a howl, not from afar, from below, from the ground. I stepped back just as the earth cracked beneath the center spiral. Ash split apart like scabs opening to fresh wounds, and from it, a paw, burned, clawed, covered in ritual scars. It was still alive. I didn't wait. I ran, but the thing never followed. It only watched. Its glowing eyes followed me until I vanished into the tree line beyond Varnholt. The trees whispered behind me, not rustling, speaking. I could swear they murmured my name with the wind. Ale, Ale, in voices not of humans but of those I buried long ago. I walked for miles. The longer I moved, the more I saw. Trees warped into symbols, bones arranged in packs of threes, Footprints with paws and toes, indecisive between forms, and the sound of claws dragging behind me, never catching up. This was no longer just a werewolf horror story. This was something else. Something older than wolves, older than skinwalkers. A cursed bloodline horror made of memory and devotion. They weren't hunting to kill. They were looking for me. Because I was the one who whispered their names in the dark all those years. I was the one who lit the first flame. I thought I had died with the others, but clearly I had not. I followed the tracks north. They weren't animal, not fully. Deep, wide prints with claw marks, but too symmetrical, and every 100 feet or so, a sigil scratched into the dirt, like breadcrumbs for the damned. The air changed the farther I went. No birds, no insects, no wind, just the endless press of red sky and the dust of a dying world. And then I saw it. A small shack, still standing, still humming with faint electric light, though there was no grid anymore. A survivor. I stepped closer, hand on the blade at my back, breath held. Inside was a man, gray-bearded, eyes clouded, rocking back and forth, whispering something rhythmic. He comes and they bow. He comes and they bow. I asked him if he meant me. He didn't answer. He just lifted his sleeve and showed me his arm, branded, not just marked, branded. My sigil, burned into the flesh, still oozing. I saw you in the fire, he said. You told me to wait, so I waited. His voice was hoarse but reverent. I asked him who did this. He didn't blink. You did. I left him there. I don't know why. Maybe mercy. Maybe I didn't want to see what was growing beneath his skin. Because when he coughed, something growled from his lungs. That night I made camp by a broken road sign half buried in ash. The wind carried the scent of blood. The moon, what was left of it, hung jagged and red. And in the distance, I heard them, multiple, low at first, then rising in a chorus. Howls, but not wild, not ravenous, organized, unified, chanted. They were calling to someone, and I knew they were calling to me. I tried to sleep. I tried to forget. But dreams came again. Except they weren't dreams anymore. I was standing in a circle of flame. Creatures bowed before me. Their eyes glowed white-hot. Their teeth gleamed with ancient blood, and when they opened their mouths, they spoke in my voice. You began the hunt. You bear the brand. You are Alpha. I woke gasping. My hands were covered in soot and fur. I didn't remember collecting it. I began losing time. Hours, days, maybe more. Sometimes I'd wake with scratches. On my arms I didn't remember getting. Sometimes I'd feel fur along my spine when I bathed in cold river water. One night I saw a group of them, 5 shapes, not quite wolf, not quite human, all of them kneeling in the road as I approached, waiting. They didn't move, didn't breathe, only watched. Then one of them howled, my howl, a perfect copy, and they followed behind me, for miles. Never attacking, never leaving, just following. They were waiting for something. Something I hadn't remembered yet. The echo hounds are not just creatures, they're vessels. Each born from bloodshed during the moon fracture. Each tied to a name in the sigil of origin. Each hunts not to feed but to fulfill. They are memory given form, loyalty given claws, and they're multiplying. I passed through a village that hadn't burned yet. It will soon. Children were drawing spirals in the dirt, spirals with teeth. One asked me, "Are you the Red Father?" Another called me the Broken Moon. They offered me meat, bloody. When I asked why you made the first one, they whispered, "You'll make the last." I wanted to scream, but part of me wanted to say thank you, and that terrified me more than the howls. There was a church, not the kind that offered salvation. This one had no doors, no altar, just scorched stone and walls lined with scratched sigils. I don't remember walking there, but there I stood, barefoot, trembling, the air pulsing with distant howls. Inside I found what was left of a priest, or what used to be one. His eyes had been plucked, his mouth sewn shut with what looked like hair, but it was his chest that held the horror. Etched into his skin, fresh, wet, deliberate, was a letter addressed to me. carved, letter by letter, in flesh. Father of the hunt, we waited. You forgot. But we never stopped walking. Your voice is written into our blood, each mark, each howl, each kill, it was you. Return to the hill of first flame. The crown still waits. I fell to my knees, not from pain, but from memory. The hill, the ritual. The moment I believed I could end the war. I remembered it now. I didn't just merge blood, I didn't just bind wolves and skinwalkers. I made a throne and they never forgot. Was never the alpha, I was the creator. And the echo hounds, they weren't waiting for me to stop them. They were waiting for permission to begin again. I stood in the broken pulpit, trembling. There, in the wall behind me, I found a crude mural, beast with glowing eyes standing over a burning world. Around its neck was a symbol, my sigil, and behind it, rows of followers, children, elders, beasts, all bowing, all branded. I stumbled back into the red air, shaking, and in the sky the clouds parted just enough to reveal what I had hoped never to see again. The severed moon, broken, cracked, but glowing, like a wound reopened. And then I heard it. Not a howl, not a growl. A voice from behind me, from inside me. You never stopped hunting. You just forgot what you were. Ale didn't survive the ritual. Not fully. The version of him walking now is what's left. A vessel of memories patched with devotion, sustained by the faith of the echo hounds. He's not being followed. He's being carried. He is their God, their story, their myth made flesh. And now, he remembers. I collapsed outside the church and felt my skin begin to heat. Not from fever, from burning. The sigil, it was reappearing, from the inside out. I was becoming the beacon again, and deep in the back of my skull, something whispered, call them home. A page lay beside the altar, torn, soaked in blood, and written in jagged ink. If you're still reading, leave your mark. Maybe it's not too late. Carve it, burn it, whisper it into ash. Like, share, before they erase this too. They found the village before I could warn them. I saw the smoke long before I heard the screams, but by then the screaming had stopped. Ash drifted through the trees like falling teeth, and in the center of what had once been the marketplace, they stood, 9 echo hounds, their bodies still and statuesque, arranged in a perfect circle. Each bore a new scar across their snouts, a fresh brand, a consecration. The corpses around them had not been torn. They had been posed, heads tilted skyward, hands, folded eyes wide open and burned out, ritually removed, not consumed. They weren't feeding. They were praying, and at the center of them, laid out like an offering, was a child, still breathing, eyes open, staring at me. She lifted one shaking hand, pointed straight at my chest, and said in a hollow whisper, "We knew you would come. They said you were fire, wrapped in bone." I fell to my knees. My skin had begun to flake, like embers shedding from wood. I pressed my palms to the dirt and felt it move, warm, pulsing. The earth was alive with memory, and it remembered me. Behind me, the echo hounds howled, not together, but one after another like a countdown. With each voice, I felt something pull loose inside me. A name I hadn't spoken in decades came to my lips. Kael'mar. I hadn't heard that name since before the ritual. It wasn't mine. It was the name I had taken after the merge. The god name, the Alpha Sigil. The child stood. The hounds didn't stop her. She walked toward me, eyes still wide, and she spoke in my voice. "Return to the hill. The throne is warm. We wait for your howl." I ran, not from fear, from what I felt growing inside. It wasn't a transformation. It was a reclamation. They weren't trying to convince me. They were preparing me. I tried to find shelter in the ruins of an old outpost. Inside were scribbled pages, burned books, shattered mirrors, makeshift shrines. But the most terrifying discovery was a mural drawn in soot, a red moon, a beast with no eyes, and beneath it, me or something with my face, standing over a world in flames, and beside it, a sentence scratched in bone. "We do not follow you because we must. We follow you because you called us," I screamed, but the only sound that left my mouth was a howl. I fell to the floor, My hands cracked open, my spine arched. No fur, no claws, just the fire inside returning to the surface, and then I saw them outside the shattered window. Dozens now, echo hounds, kneeling, waiting. They weren't hunting anymore. They were assembling. I climbed the hill with bones beneath it. The wind had died, the air, still and heavy, pressed against my chest like hands. This was the place I had tried to seal the blood, the hill of first flame, where I bound werewolf to skinwalker, where I bled until the world cracked under my feet, and now it welcomed me home. They were already there, hundreds, echo hounds, on all fours, on hind legs, some partially human, others fully monstrous, their forms a patchwork of fur, flame, bone, and memory. They made no sound, they only knelt. I reached the summit. The stone circle I carved all those years ago was intact, untouched by time or war. But now, it glowed. The sigil burned into its center, pulsed with light as if alive. It had grown, sprawled outward like roots, touching every kneeling beast below. And then they began to speak, not with mouths, but with my voice. Kelmar returns. The hunt resumes. We are made of him, we are for him, we are him. The earth beneath my feet cracked. The wind turned red, the sky bled starlight in reverse. I felt my skin tighten, my teeth elongate. Not into fangs, but into runes. My blood hummed, my bones remembered. I fell to my knees, and they howled, not in triumph, in worship. Each howl etched more power into the circle. The stone beneath me began to glow white-hot. Then, something tore open within me, not pain, not rage, remembrance. I had never survived the ritual, not as myself. What walked the world afterward was the byproduct of the binding. A soul split and sewn back together, stitched from alpha blood, shaman, rites and ancient names best left unsaid. I had forgotten, because that's what was required to keep the bond stable. But the moment I remembered, the pact broke and the hunt resumed. The echo hounds weren't just monsters. They were replicas, each one a reflected fragment of me, of Kelmar. Every kill, every howl, every ritual was an echo of a command I once gave. And now they stood as proof. I wasn't their leader. I was their source. From the horizon came more, thousands, the final pack, old ones, new ones, hybrid forms beyond anatomy, crawling, flying, running on all limbs or none at all. The hunt wasn't gathering, it was ascending. My hands flamed red, not burning, transforming. Veins became tendrils. Sigils covered my chest, glowing like stars on ash. My shadow stretched over the hilltop, then stood up on its own. It bowed. I opened my mouth to scream. Instead, I roared and the world trembled. The hill split. The stone circle shattered into rising embers. The echo hounds howled as one until the sky tore open above us. They didn't want a king. They never wanted a master. They wanted a god. And now I was whole. This was never redemption. This was resurrection. Hell didn't escape the curse. He became it. And the world, what was left of it, would learn his name again. Not in fear, in devotion. I don't remember the fire ending. I only remember silence. The kind that follows thunder. The kind that buries screams. When I opened my eyes, the world was quiet. The hill was gone, flattened into obsidian ash. The stone circle crumbled, the sky still red, but now with streaks of violet like veins pulsing through the atmosphere. And they were gone. All of them. The echo hounds, the howls, the fire. All that remained was me, but not quite. My shadow didn't follow anymore. It led. It walks 10 steps ahead of me now, carving the sigil into the dirt with every step. And sometimes late at night I hear the wind speaking again, not in howls, in names. Old names, new ones, maybe yours. I tried hiding, tried forgetting again. But you can't bury something that was made to rise. Somewhere out there they still wait, not in packs anymore. In pairs, in whispers, in bloodline scars and children's dreams. They wear the faces of the fallen. They speak in borrowed voices, and they're calling others to the flame, not to hunt, to become. You may think this is a story, a myth, a memory, but if you've read this far, you're already part of it. The sigil finds those who seek it. The hunt recognizes its own. If you're still here, leave your mark. Carve it into the comments. Burn it into your screen. Share the signal before the circle reforms, because they will. Return, and this time they won't kneel, they'll choose, and if they say your name, don't answer, just run or howl. And for those who hunger for more, step deeper into the shadows with our ultimate werewolf horror playlist, linked in the description below. In the world of horror, the scariest things happen when you least expect them, and trust me, you don't want to be left in the dark. Welcome to the darkness.